From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in North Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Hey, good Sunday morning to you. Another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 23rd. We usually do this video in terms of the longer range and taking a look at some storms on the horizon. But we do have something in the short range, a very weak wave moving through overnight tonight, and this will give us a pre-Christmas clipper. I don't really want to call this a white Christmas. I know some people really don't care what the definition is by the National Weather Service, but this really has to fall on Christmas Eve during the evening, and it's coming in tonight. So this is a little early, a day early, but just some very light stuff here that likely will melt on Christmas Eve as temperatures get above freezing. So this is what we're looking at for snow overnight. Again, not much. Just looking at the southern fringe here in the pink areas are mostly just a rain-snow mix and no accumulations, but there could be a few of these colder spots that get into a light dusting, as the precipitation goes from rain-snow mix over to snow at the very end. And also here in B, it might even start on the southern fringe here as a rain-snow mix. This would go right through the Lehigh Valley and up into parts of north-central New Jersey. The areas that are expected to get some accumulations of an inch or two, and then maybe up to 3 in areas of elevation over 1,500 feet are up in these areas here. So those are the areas we're focusing on. Elsewhere, you could get a coating to an inch. Again, the southern fringe areas here, I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of get shafted on this, just because it's a rain-snow mix and it's going to end as a burst of snow. You might be closer to the coating here in some of these areas. It's non-paved anyway, so I'm really not going to micromanage it. I just want to have this here just so you can see it visually, and this is, of course, on the Weather Alerts page and updated this morning. Okay, so that is for that weak wave coming through, and that is what that's these snow showers right here that are shown in the long range from Friday. This is our long range chart from Friday, and we do have. Of course, today we're still slightly above average temperatures. Average temperatures are now getting back into the 30s for highs, so we're still, if you're 40, 42-ish today, then that's still slightly above average. Very, very slightly, but slightly nevertheless. But then we get into a near average period right around Christmas. Maybe on Christmas Day you have a slightly below average day, but then we were back up to kind of like what we were today. Once we get, or what we will be on Monday anyway, on Wednesday. So kind of a rebound there, and that whole period averages out to be near average through the 27th. We do have a warmer surge coming in right at a time with a system coming in at the end of the week. It's going to bring us some rain, and that is the 28th, 29th. This is not a repeat of the system that we just had recently, so it's not as much rain with that. But it is rain, and we're not looking at any frozen precipitation with that. And we do have a winter storm signal listed here between the 1st and 5th of January. I do think we have some opportunities coming in to start January right off the bat. There are some indications here actually from last night's GFS run and to some extent the European model on New Year's Eve having some wintry precipitation. So we're not going to turn our back on that either, even though the GFS this morning decided to go poof and disappeared with it. But that's a period that we have to watch also. Not so sure it gets in here at the right time where we're going to be a lot colder. I do think we're going to get progressively colder as we get through the next couple weeks. That first week of January is near to slightly below average. Starts off kind of near average, and then kind of tails off to slightly below by the time we get to the end of that period. And then, it might be cold right around New Year's, and you might have a transient couple days where it's a little milder, and then it goes right back down to colder again, and that stays that way and locks in for the second week and third weeks of January where it gets quite cold. And we're pretty confident that I know the average that we just have moderate conference list in here, but if you want my personal opinion, I think this is pretty much locked in here at this point where we get into the cold temperatures. And we're going to get some El Nino forcing a little bit, so it's going to get the active southern jet going. So I don't think you're going to take a step back in the precipitation department either. Not saying we're going to have some major snowfall or anything like that. There could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could just be some small, quick moving systems moving through. It's going to depend on blocking and some other features at that time. But right now we're concentrating our winter storm signal for the beginning, the first week of January for something to happen. Again, that might extend into the final day of 2018 also. We'll have to wait and see how that works out. But January as a whole, as compared to December, is going to be a slightly below average month at least. with temperatures below average and slightly above average snowfall at the very least. Okay, the reason we're going that way, taking a look at the Madden-Julian Oscillation, we are in a phase 5 right now. That's this area circled, and that's, you know, this area here is not really conducive for any cold area in the eastern United States. It's not until you get to like phase 7, phase 8, phase 1 that we get into that really cold, the cold configuration across the eastern United States. So this is an eastward propagating MJO wave, and you can see right now phase 5 sitting out here this morning, and phase 5 is going to go through phase 5 this upcoming week, and then the following week goes into phase 6. Then eventually we get to 7. It's kind of heading towards 7 and 8. These are the colder phases over here. So it's kind of heading that direction. You see the time frame here is December 22nd is when this started. So that was over here. We're still in phase 4. Today is December 23rd. We are in phase 5 now. And clearly you can see that where the area I circled, that is a phase 5 signal. And it's going to stick around in there for a little bit, and then it'll finally move eastward. And as we get the end of the period here, the last dot over here, right at the end of phase 7, beginning of phase 8, that is the 5th of January. So there's been so much talk about the stratosphere, stratospheric warming, and I know the media ran with a big article about it. They do this every year, like it's a new thing or something, a new concept. It's not a new concept. This is it's baffling, some of these articles I read. But regardless, you know, we've been talking about for several weeks the stratospheric warming help. Just a matter of when it was coming, not really so much if, and whether we're going to have a displacement or a split of the stratospheric polar vortex, which has effects on our weather locally. Whether or not that happens or happens the way you want it, you're still going to have the Madden-Julian Oscillation heading to more favorable signals. So like I said last week, and I used the phrase come hell or high water, it's going to happen. Okay? Here's what phase 5, phase 6 does. These are warmer phases. That's why we expect those warmer risks going through, especially the end of the month. And then once we get into phase 7, it's showing, this is a paintbrush here, phase 7 is showing slightly above average temperatures here, but this isn't exactly right for when you have an El Nino. It's a little bit different to look, and I'll show you that here in the video too. Okay, so it's a little colder than that. At least it's transitioning to colder, and I think that would time well with that first week of January, right in here. This is the first week of January, so I do think we get that. All right, now one thing we're starting to notice, and this is in the medium range forecasts, you see this long Pacific jet extension going on here? This is impressive, and this is indicative of an El Nino. This is El Nino taking shape, and when you have it extending from all the way across the Pacific, from you have a positive East Asian mountain torque going on here at the same time. You have a long jet extension going across the Pacific, and that will extend into the eastern United States. This is your El Nino forcing right here, folks. So we have that showing, and this is not that far away. This is actually showing it, and I'm showing hour 276 here, but this is actually starting before that. So this is starting in the medium range. This is showing up with the jet extension. So it's not like it's the GFS trying to project something at hour 384, and we know how those forecasts are. This is in the medium range. So this is happening, and we can see observationally that this is happening. When you have it in an El Nino pattern, an extended Pacific jet stream is one of those key ingredients that gets this wet southern jet going. So you do start turning a little bit drier in the Ohio Valley, okay? But we're not in our area. We're kind of like in between. We get these storms every once in a while that just can really wrap up, or you get the fast-moving storms, and maybe you're on the northern fringe of that, and you're just getting just a modest snowfall, but you're getting snow nevertheless because you're colder. All right, so a lot of different things going on here that are starting to take shape. That we were starting to project in these when we were in the weather weeklies before. You heard me projecting. Well, maybe this will happen. Maybe this will happen. You think that things are going to work out a certain way, but now you're starting to see it. The models are starting to pick up on it. As far as the stratospheric warming is concerned, they are still picking up on a split vortex. So this would be a good thing. It's warming over the poles, displacing the colder air further south. Look where it is, right over here. This is great. Great if you like snow. Okay, so the sudden stratospheric warming, at least at the 10 millibar level, which is up there quite a bit. That's about 10,000 or 100,000 feet above the surface. But it's showing a split vortex, so this could be good as far as getting into the middle of January beyond, waiting into February. This will extend it. Okay, so there's that. I mean, that's telling me that, it's going to get colder, but this isn't one of those deals where we go into the MJO, these favorable phases, it just keeps on going through and cycling through. I don't think it cycles. I think it sticks around in here for quite some time, and it's in part due to this jet extension. This jet extension can actually keep you locked in those colder MJO phases for a long and considerable amount of time. So we get into January, we have the stratospheric help, and we have the split in the vortex especially, and not just a displacement. We could be locked in for quite a while. for the cold and snowy pattern going through right through the month of February. Maybe even the beginning of March. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's getting a little bit too far ahead there, but you get the idea. All right, so here is, we have the milder periods expected still with that big storm. Well, it's not really a big storm compared to the last one, but it's, it's a sizable storm. And we're going to have a rainstorm at the end of the week. This is the 28th, 29th time frame. And it's going to be coinciding with warmer air and synoptically driven warmer air. So it's going to bring in the mild air ahead of it again. And then it gets cooler after that, right around New Year's Eve. And this is the period we have to watch because there's the New Year's Eve storm that's been kind of shown at different, every model cycle is different because you're kind of going out here in time. Look what you 204 hours. This is quite a few hours in the future where the models are trying to project. So it sees something. It sees this transient cold period right here. And then the GFS last night decided to do this. Of course, this morning it lost it. You're going to expect that to see it go back and forth like that. The European model has something kind of in between where it has like a rain-snow mix for the south and at least some wintry precipitation involved with this. This is New Year's Eve, so we will watch this time frame closely. Not really sold on this just yet. Maybe some wintry involved with that going over to rain or maybe a mix or who knows. A bunch of different things could happen with this. Or it could stay all snow or it could be nothing at all. It could stay south. There's a lot of different scenarios with that. But as far as going back to the MJO, here's what January MJO phases 7 and 8 do in an El Nino. This is what we look like in a phase 7. Okay, phase 7 is still colder than average, at least in the northeast United States. Okay, and we start to see the very warm anomalies up here in Alaska and northern and western Canada. All right, cooler here, warmer there, and then you have this cold pool below Alaska, south of there. Okay, if you go to phase 8, it gets even better for us, at least colder and more stormy. So phase 8 is a little bit better than 7, no doubt. But at least you're seeing a transition in phase 7 where we are headed, and the models are pretty much unanimously heading us into this phase 7 at some point. It looks like it's going to be that first couple days of January when we hit that. So that's going to be your transitions. Phase 7 is a transition. It's not a full-blown cold and snowy pattern, but it's getting there. Okay, and that's that transition period, that first couple days. So we have a storm signal there. It might be some slop storms or mixes or light stuff or whatever. But look at this phase 7 again. I want you to take a note, just take a mental snapshot of this. See this right here? This is what phase 7 looks like. Look what the models have now in that same time frame. Wow, that looks pretty close, doesn't it? Here's the cold pool south of Alaska. Here's the ridging in Alaska, western Canada. And we are colder than average, folks. This is looking at the evening of January 6th. And this is building over here. This is a phase 7 look. See that? So the whole idea here is we're heading in the right direction. If you're snow-starved, if you're a snow hound, you love snow, you love skiing, you love whatever reason you love snow. It is looking better for you going into January and February. And we talked about 2014 and the 2014, 2015. This is how that shaped up. January turned colder again in that northeast United States area where we are. We don't care about elsewhere, or at least I don't. I don't forecast for anywhere else, folks. Sorry. But this is how February turned out. It was even more brutal cold because we locked into those El Nino phases. And this is still following it, 2014, 2015, winter analog being number 1. As far as the stratospheric split, though, this is very conducive of what happened in 2004. Early January 2004 had something similar with a split vortex. It's actually very oddly similar. So there's a combination of analog years in there. But as far as our sensible weather and what it did, this is how November looked in 2014. This is pretty close to what happened. December's not going to end up quite this warm, but have the same general idea where the country is very warm, warmer than average anyway. This year, like it was in 2014. So we had that break in between, not a lot of snow, virtually no snow actually. And then once we got into January and February, it looked like this. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. Okay, so again, just to recap, I'm going to do a quick summary. I don't want to keep everybody really too long, because I know it's right before Christmas, and we have a lot of things going on with shopping and wrapping and things like that. You really rather not watch a long video, so we're going to keep it a little shorter today. This is the summary. Weak wave brings snow showers overnight tonight in the areas that I mentioned. I'll show you that map again before I get off here. And it is also on the weather alerts page. It has been updated. The late week system comes at a time where mild air is in place, and likely it's rain region-wide. I don't think there's a mix involved with that one. Then we're watching the New Year's Eve timeframe for a possible snow or a mix of something. Maybe snow to rain, or some areas just stay rain. Some areas will stay all snow. It just depends. Might not even see a storm. It's possible that thing just stays south of here. So there's a lot of different things going on there with that. We'll have to take a look at in this upcoming week. That's the one we're going to be watching. And then the pattern change during the first week of January to more sustainable, colder and snowier pattern. That's just the transition week, though. Again, don't expect a whole lot. I know we have a storm signal in there. Winter storm signal in here. But because it's the beginning of January, if you're near average, you don't need below average in January to produce snow. I mean, it's already climatologically the coldest time of the year. So it's not hard to get winter storms in the beginning of January as long as you have the precipitation involved. It's just a matter of, if you're in the middle of a transition, you're going to a phase 7, that's going to help with that, certainly. Okay, so we're going to be watching this, and then we get into the end of the week, and right into the middle of the month, it's going to stay like this, where it's really cold in the east, I think, and you're going to have a ridge starting to build here in the western United States, and that's going to be part of the phase 7 transition. If we go into phase 8, this kind of locks in. And I do think because of this jet extension that's shown here in the medium and long range, if you take this all the way out to 384, it actually extends all the way just like it does here. Jet extension goes right across the Pacific and it hangs in. And what that does is it keeps the MJO phases locked in too. So it doesn't get, it kind of keeps it where it is. So El Nino forcing will have a hand in that and keeping the MJO in the favorable phases for cold and snow as we head into at least the middle of January and beyond into February. That's the time frame we're looking at where it could be pretty crazy around here, and we're pretty busy. My Pocket Meteorologist Premium Forum and the text alerts still accepting still accepting the new subscriptions to that. We have the Premium Forum. We'll give up to 7 days out. We'll give analysis of any storms coming in, model analysis, detailed model analysis. We haven't gotten into too much so far because we've had these little, December hasn't been too busy. But, we have these little minor snowfalls coming in. But when we get into some bigger event potentials, we're going to start doing those model analysis every single day leading up to the event. So discussing that with you can interact with the meteorologist here on the forum. The text alerts here come right to your phone and give you specific timing and amounts for your county. And we'll update those every single day leading up to an event. As long as there's some kind of change involved there. We did set them for this last storm, and here is your storm that I'm talking about. Again, this is on the weather alerts page. This is for tonight. This is just a weak wave moving through, but some areas will get some minor accumulations from this. Rain-snow mix further south. Even the southern part of the B here, I think you start off as a rain-snow mix, might end as snow type of thing there. So that would be over through the Lehigh Valley in north-central New Jersey. Where it stays colder and all snow, that's where you get your 1 to 2. So that's what we're looking at for that. For the system coming in tonight. But just click on the image below this video if you have not subscribed yet. It'll take you to the My Pocket Meteorologist Winter Alerts page, and you can read up more about this and also sign up right from that link. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, December 23rd. Join us again next week. Hopefully we'll get a better handle on what we have as far as storm signals in the beginning of January and beyond. And we'll continue to update that throughout the week every Friday. Every Friday we have the public long range available. And then we'll recap it here on Sunday and go into a little bit further explanation of that. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year if you're not going to be around next week. And I will see you again next week on the 30th. Take care.